Today, we're going to talk about the smart way to build your emergency fund. Hi, welcome to another episode of Marriage and Money Tips. I'm Elle Martinez, creator and host of Couple Money, where we're focused on helping spouses get on the same page, dump their debt faster, and get onto path of financial freedom. And I would love to say that it's smooth, but life happens and we hit bumps in the road. Actually, last week we had something happen to us where we had over $200 of unexpected expenses. So Wednesday morning, I was getting the girls ready, going to drop my oldest one off at school. Took a little bit to get them in the car. I turned the key and it doesn't start. I had no idea what was going on because our car has been working fine. We hadn't had any problems with that. So after rushing and switching to my husband's car, dropping them off, I called to get a mechanic to check it out. And it turns out we needed a new battery and a couple other things fixed. Since all cars need some kind of maintenance, we weren't completely thrown off. We had some money saved. So while it was a headache and an annoyance and definitely inconvenience, we are grateful that it wasn't something that blew our budget. We were able to take that money and pay for the expenses. And that's what I want to happen to you. If you do have an emergency or something unexpected, yes, I know it's going to be a headache, but I'd rather you have some money in savings that you can transfer, use to pay your expenses, and then you keep moving on instead of stressing out and you guys are arguing over what bill doesn't get paid or gets delayed to cover this emergency that you have. So how do you build your savings? How do you go about the smart way with emergency funds? Well, one of the first questions couples have is, how much should we have tucked away in our emergency fund? Okay, so there are three factors that you want to consider when you're putting together your emergency fund. The general consensus is 3 to 6 months of expenses, but from family, that can vary, and depending on the income that you're bringing in, it can seem like it's unrealistic. So why don't we come up with a number that's more tailored to you and your situation? The first one is look at your family size. Is it just the two of you, or do you have kids or other family members that you're taking care of? That is a factor that you want to put in. Of course, if it's more than just the two of you, probably want to be more cautious and more conservative with what you stash away. The second is, what are your essential family expenses? That consensus is 3 to 6 months of expenses. That isn't necessarily the case. Of course, we have fun money, we have a little bit extra, and if you have an emergency, temporarily you're going to tighten up a little bit. So when you look at your expenses, what are the crucial ones? Food, shelter, transportation, that way you can keep the income if you have a job and you're driving. And then what expenses can you temporarily hold or negotiate to get cheaper? Of course, some bills you can't just turn off and on again. So put that in your budget. But keep in mind, if this emergency is huge and it's going to take a while, that you want to make sure that your regular expenses are really manageable. And so this is another reason, just real quick, why I just want to remind you that having debt can be more of a burden than you realize. When you have an emergency, you still have to make those car payments, of course, the mortgage, and if you have credit card debt, student loans, those weigh on you. So when things are going well, make sure you have a plan to get rid of that debt. That gives you more options. And when it comes to having emergencies, you won't necessarily have to have as big of a fund because most of your expenses are going to be a lot less and more manageable. Okay, so we talked about your family size expenses. The last one is your income streams. Are you a single income family? Then you definitely want to go more conservative. But if you're dual, or sometimes some of you are doing side hustles and you have multiple income streams, that does give you some flexibility. Doesn't mean that you can completely, if you have dual income or a side hustle income, that you can't do an emergency fund or you don't need to. It just means you're not as dependent on it. So when you construct that number, when you figure it out, look at those key factors: your family size, your necessary family expenses, and your current income streams, and then come up with a number that makes sense for you. And remember, you can always have a starter emergency fund for those absolutely crucial expenses you need to have covered, and then start tackling those debts. That way, when you build up your fund, it doesn't have to be this huge, massive amount, but rather something manageable and small that you can reach fairly quickly. And of course, when you are talking about emergency funds, you want to make sure it's in the best place for you. Now, there are, again, 3 key factors on where you should stash your cash for emergencies or just general savings. 1, you want easy access to it in an emergency. So if it takes a couple days to get to it, that's going to be a headache for you, especially like, for example, with me in that situation with the car repair. It was nice to have that money available, pay for it, and then move forward. The next one is you want it in a safe place. If you put it in a bank, look for it FDIC insured, and then also look for credit unions, NCUA. You want to make sure that that money is there when you need it. And then finally, this is not the main point of emergency fund, but if you're looking at options and it's apples to apples, it's a safe, it's an accessible place for you, then look to see if you can grow some of your savings with a competitive interest rate. You don't got to go hunting with your emergency fund. Remember, this is for emergencies. This is not for growth and building wealth. This is just a safety net, a financial cushion for you. And there are a lot of great options out there. If you're tired of the big banks and you feel like the interest rate is really, really small for the amount that you have saved, 1, start looking local. Your community banks, credit unions typically offer really competitive rates. And if you're a member of a credit union, what's great about that is you're not a customer, you're part owner. And so what that usually means is that you get higher interest rates being a member with the savings accounts. And if you had a credit card or a loan with them, you tend to pay lower rates. So it's a win-win scenario. Look around at your local credit unions. They can be a fantastic partner with your money. We have a credit union that we absolutely love here. Fantastic. If you're in the area, Coastal is wonderful. But there's other credit unions that you can check out. And then again, don't forget community banks. They can be a great resource. And then you have that face-to-face contact. You have someone you can work with if you have any questions, one-on-one. It's much easier than instead of a lot of the big banks, you're in lines or you're on the phone for a long time. And then also online banks. If you're a type of person that you're busy and you just don't have a lot of time and you don't need to go inside of a branch constantly for your savings or anything else, online banks can be fantastic. Just 3 of them that I'm thinking off the top of my head: Ally Bank, Capital One 360, and CIT Bank. You can do it from your home, open an account, transfer, and make things automatic. So there you have it. How to come up with the right number for your emergency fund and where to stash it. Of course, the last question is, where do we find the money to build our emergency fund? If you guys are stuck and you have a really tight budget and you're looking for ideas, I have a free course. It's called 5 Days to 5K. And what it does, it's week long. It takes you through how you can find, save, and earn some more money so you can grow that gap and you can start building your emergency fund on your terms. If that sounds good to you, sign up at couplemoney.com/5K. Again, it's completely free and it's just a week-long series. And if you like this video and you found it helpful, could you please hit the like button and share it with your friends? Love to get people to save more money without stressing out. And if you want to get the latest marriage and money tips and not miss an episode, please hit the subscribe button. We come out with new videos every week. Mondays, we have the marriage and money tips, but I also have experts that come on and share their tips and stories on how you can work together to build your wealth.